How are you doing this morning? I hope you're doing all right. Let's see if the live stream kicks in. And we're going to get started with the workout this morning in a minute or so. Yeah, everything seems to be working. The sound seems to be working. The stream seems to be working. There's a poll up so we can get started. Good morning, friends. Thanks for dropping by. My name is Toby. I am 41 years old and I train to live an active, self-sufficient and adventurous life. I do so by minding my sleep, minding what I eat. I try to eat within my energy balance, try to sleep about 7 to 9 hours every night. And by showing up for some training, some mobility training, which is what we're going to do today, strength training, strength conditioning training, endurance training, HIIT training, low intensity steady state cardio training, you name it, I'm probably doing it. Around that I also try to stay active throughout the day, make sure that I move sufficiently, not only during my training, but also when I'm sitting at my desk and in the time in between, so that I get around 2.5 hours of movement in throughout the day. So 30 minutes of training. I'm going to go for a 30-minute walk later, try to go for a 30-minute walk in the evening, and then there's like 90 minutes of activity that I try to do or incorporate in the day. That is a walk to the train station, a walk to the office, a walk around the block at the office, taking the stairs, doing some exercise snacks, to make sure that I stay physically active throughout the day, because 30 minutes of training alone isn't going to offset the detrimental effects of the sedentary lifestyle that we've developed, or that I tend to live, because of what life is at the moment. On top of that, I try to connect and build relationships with people I love and care about, try to do things that I enjoy, and generally try to live a stress-free life. So hey, if that's something you're interested in, you can go ahead and check out my channel, look at all of my videos, maybe subscribe. I do a short 15-minute podcast every day where I talk about one of these 5 topics. So I talk about either sleep or nutrition or moving or connections or pursuits or hobbies or community, and I talk about one little adjustment we can make in the day to develop a different set of habits that are going to keep us healthy, fit for life, because this is about the way I feel, not about the way I look. I would like to feel fit, capable and competent for whatever life's going to throw at me, and life can probably throw quite a bit at us. So I would like to at least be in a space where physically my health and capacity is in a space where I can manage the stresses of life well. And there are 2 main reasons for that. The first main reason is that I've understood that we might live to be 90, definitely going to make it to 70, barring any tragedies. 80 is very realistic, and 90 is possible, and maybe even 100 over my lifetime. And the thing about getting older is, in the expansion in living years, is that we're getting those extra years, but we are actually not getting more healthy years. We actually get a lot more years that we spend sick and needing care. And it turns out that quite a bit of those years that we are sick and in need of care, we might be able to mitigate the effects of those diseases and discomforts through the lifestyle that we adopt in our 40s, 50s, 60s, and 70s. So in other words, we can set ourselves up for a longer, healthier, and more active life. And I think that's worth keeping in mind and worth striving for, which is one of the main motivations It used to be that I wanted to be slim and fit in my teens and 20s. Then it got to, well, I just want to lose all this excess weight that I put on in my end 20s, early 30s, which was about 21, 22 kilos, of fat, which I trained off. Then we had 2 children, and I realized that on top of going to be around maybe till I'm 70, 80, or 90, I also want to put out a good example, the second goal, for my 2 sons, and what an active and healthy adult actually looks like, and what an active and healthy lifestyle actually looks like. So to learn the tools and the skills and the knowledge and the techniques or skills, as you might want to call them, to actually live a healthy lifestyle and to pass those on to my kids, but also to actively participate in their life, whether they're playing on the floor or climbing up a tree. I would like to be able to do both with them without issue, and I think I'm well on my way to doing that, despite having to fight deterioration that sets in after 30 and definitely after 40. There's a lot more context there, but I'll talk about that in my podcast later. So if you want to drop by there for a chat, more than welcome to. And if you're here on this channel, by the way, I have a poll up. Go ahead and answer it, and otherwise say hi on chat and let me know that you're watching. I'm going to slightly rearrange the camera. I'm going to move it a little bit closer because we seem to be getting a lot of floor and not a lot of me. And then we're going to get started with the workout. We're going to turn that on. So there, I think this is probably as good as it's going to get. What do you think? I think this is a great, maybe even a bit better spot. We're just going to tilt the camera slightly, and then we're going to get started. There we go. That's better, I think. Now we're talking. All right, so the timer's on, and we're going to just start off with some mobility and get started this morning. And I appreciate you dropping by and saying hi. It is Thursday morning, 5:21, where I'm at. I'm in Amsterdam, and as we're going to train, I'm going to talk about health and fitness. And this is going to take about 20 or 30 minutes. All right. So because I think in general we take health and fitness for granted a little bit. And I can also understand why we're taking health and fitness for granted, because as long as we're not actually sick, it's very hard to imagine that there's anything out of whack with our general health or fitness. I mean, we're functioning, right? We're feeling fine. So what could possibly be wrong with us? And I think the fact that we don't stop to consider our health and fitness and understand actually how much control we have in terms of fit and staying healthy for life, I think is actually a good reason for me to be here and to be talking about all the positive things that we can do for ourselves when it comes to our health and our fitness. And today we're doing some mobility, we're doing a training, but in general, actually, the way we live our lives we need to reevaluate some things, given the fact that we spend a lot of money on medical bills, especially later on in life. But being on medication should always be a kind of fallback option, unless if there are alternatives, because medication is relatively crude, right? It can be life-saving. So whenever the doctor tells you that you need it, you probably need to start using it, don't get me wrong, but is there anything we can do before we get to that point? And I think that is the more important question that we actually don't ask ourselves frequently enough. And that is, okay, what can I do every day that is going to keep me fit and healthy for life? And the funny thing is that we've actually completely forgotten what those things are. And they are relatively simple. We've not only forgotten, we've actually designed our lives and the world around us and the priorities have away from all of the things that keep us healthy and fit for life and living, without us even having to try too hard. So let's start by reviewing the basics. The things that we need to understand in order to take charge of our personal health, personal fitness, with simple steps, things that we can do in our home every day, like I'm doing right now with my workout. Just basically showing up here and doing the work while I'm waking up. It's not even 5:30 a.m. where I'm at. We are simply coming at life from the idea that at 41, I'm not even halfway there. And there are things that I want to do, that I want to spend my life doing. And if I don't take proper care of my personal health and fitness, then how is that actually going to work out? The answer is, well, maybe, maybe it's not really going to work out. So what are those basics? Well, let's start with the context. It is more likely in today's society that you are going to get unhealthy than that you are going to stay healthy over time. And this already starting to manifest as early as our teens. What do I mean by that? If you look at the statistics, for the country I live in, for example, around 60% of people, right, is overweight, all right? More than half of the population carries around excess weight in the form of body fat. Not only that, right, but like 12 or 13% of people is obese. Now there's nothing wrong with you as a human being. If you carry around excess weight, it doesn't make you any less of a person. But for a large part of that population, the chances of developing certain diseases that will affect quality of life and longevity are significant and significantly increased. Couple that with the fact that, maybe only 1/3 of teenagers actually feels they move sufficiently or has access to sports more than once a week. You can see that already at a young age, we are starting to move less and less and carry excess weight around in the form of body fat because of the consumption pattern that we've developed in today's world. And you can not notice any of the detrimental health impacts of your current lifestyle for a long time. I think one of the better examples here is heart disease, right? Where the first sign of heart disease is that heart attack that is likely to kill you. So just think about that the first brush with the severe effects of a lifestyle that leads to cardiovascular disease often is also one of the last. And I think we need to do a better job at coming to terms with those risks. And I think up until our 30s, maybe mid-30s, we're not that focused on the future we have ahead of us, because it's hard to imagine being 80 or 90 years old. I think when we get to 40, maybe we start to think about life in slightly different light, and we start to realize, because we start to see people more and more in our environment maybe suffering from these kinds of afflictions, that could also happen to us. All right, but it is more likely than not in today's society that you are on a path to suffering the consequences of any of these big four diseases, starting with metabolic syndrome, which is a precursor to diabetes, what we would call pre-diabetes, cardiovascular disease, cancer, and neurodegenerative diseases and afflictions. So, all of that, or a lot of the increased risk, can be brought back to understanding the impact our healthy or unhealthy lifestyle actually is going to have on those long-term health outcomes. See, without realizing it, we've created this world where there is too much food available. And I think we don't really appreciate or recognize that that is even the case. X Varikais, hello, thanks for dropping by, saying hi. I appreciate you dropping by in the chat and saying hello, and I hope you're doing well where you're at in the world. My name is Toby. I'm 41 years old, and I'm training to live an active and self-sufficient life, not only now, but in the future. And I talk about health and fitness on my channel. And I always like it when people drop by to say hi. I hope you're doing well where you're at in the world. It's 5:30 in the morning where I'm at. So good morning if it's morning for you. Good evening if it's evening for you. I hope the day's been good. So let's see. We're talking about the environment we've created and the fact that there is so much food available that it actually has become a problem. I'm doing mobility training, by the way, this morning, in case you hadn't seen the title of the video. So, what does that mean? Well, first of all, it is not very hard to come by food in today's world. So if you live in the world that I live in, I live in the Netherlands, but it's the same in most of Europe, in the US, in Australia, right? Is that you can go out of the front door, probably go out the front door now at 5:30 in the morning, and it wouldn't be too hard to find a place that is selling food. And especially throughout the day, during business hours, there are many, many options to where we can get food, energy, calories. And you might think, well, that's a good thing, right? The fact that there is always food available without us having to do put that much effort into the procurement of food actually becomes problematic, combined with a couple of other lifestyle challenges that I'll talk about in a moment. But not only is there always food available, the types of food that are available are not leafy greens and salads everywhere you go. Wouldn't that be nice, right? Um, so it's not like we go out for a snack and what we can buy is, like a pack of nuts and some fresh tomatoes, some fresh cucumbers, some fresh paprikas, maybe an apple. They're usually things that are packaged in plastic or in tinfoil sleeve, that are produced industrially and that have a lot of flavoring added to them. Whether that is the drinks or the foods, doesn't really matter. They have a better shelf life. They are cheap. They provide a better margin because of their brands. And there are good reasons for companies and stores to want to sell them. There are also good reasons for us to want to limit the amount of these kinds of foods that we consume, but we'll talk about that over the course of this year as well. So we have that challenge in terms of food being ubiquitously available without us having to do too much for it, and that the types of foods that are available, quick, accessible, are actually relatively unhealthy, packed with flavorings, salt, sugar, fats, to make them more palatable and easier for us to consume more of. To give you an example, it is absolutely possible to consume about 70 calories to a minute, or 700 calories in 10 minutes. But I would like you to try to burn off 700 calories of energy in 10 minutes, whatever exercise you prefer. And you're going to find that it's probably going to take you between 30 and more likely 60 minutes to actually use up that amount of calories. So we have this challenge in our environment related to food. We also have a challenge in our environment related to rest or sleep. We are more and more stressed, and the more stressed we are, the more we eat because it's available, the worse we sleep. But it's not just stress, it's also stimulation, right? There is an abundance of opportunity out there to distract ourselves from life and living. And in doing so, we actually learn that we spend our evenings, the time that we have free, either scrolling through other people's lives or watching shows that other people have made and designed for our entertainment, we think, but they're actually designed just to make money. And there's no harm in wanting to go to the movies or watch a TV show or catch up with your favorite streamer or content creator. But that is all time that you could be spending doing many, many different things related to your health and fitness. And the question is, why do we want to spend so much time actually being distracted? There are also a lot of things throughout the day that take 2-3 times more time than they should, because we're constantly interrupting ourselves with that digital device to check something. And if we kick that habit of constantly checking something, we might actually get ahead in terms of the things that we really want to focus on for a living. But this constant interruption is instrumental in understanding why we are not sleeping as well as we could. And the need we have for sleep is undeniable. And we also need to be very mindful of the fact that we have convinced ourselves that sleep is not a necessity, whereas for our health and longevity, it absolutely is. It is probably the single most effective tool we have to help regulate and manage our health and fitness. All right? So there's another one. And then there is the absolute lack of movement. Even if you are going to the gym 3 times a week for 30 to 60 minutes, but you spend the rest of the week sitting on the couch or sitting in a chair behind a screen or sitting in a truck or a car stuck in traffic, you are not doing enough to offset the detrimental effects of the absence of activity in our day-to-day to stay generally fit and healthy. And with this modern lifestyle where we are very busy and focused on ourselves, the things we want, and the careers we want to have, we tend to not find time for things we can actually master, pursuits we can engage in. Hobbies would be what we might call it. Things that we do just for the pleasure of doing them, in which we can develop any sort of skill. They're usually creative endeavors: painting, drawing, writing, music, crafting, whether those are big or small things, carpenting, making things with our hands, learning to use our motor skills to actually make stuff happen. We are probably not spending enough time there, and we're also not investing sufficient time and energy into the different relationships that form the constellation of our lives. Whereas it is probably quite important that we invest in and build strong relationships to stay fit and healthy for life. Because we define ourselves and our experience of life through the relationships we have, the conversations we have with other people. And there are a lot of lonely people out there, a lot of people who find it hard to connect with others, because there is really a difference between connecting on a chat forum, connecting through videos here in chat, or sitting across from someone in real life and actually having a conversation. And we need to be doing more of that. But instead, we are more and more focused on those screens, more and more focused on our success and our own advancement, and less concerned with the people around us. And I think that is a missed opportunity for life as well. So, we need to think these things through. The basics of our health and fitness are sleep, food, movement, connection, and pursuits, and we need to develop a strategy within the context of the lives we are living today that is going to fit in the pattern of life and the demands and the responsibilities and the commitments that we've made. And on the other hand, you need to free up time and energy and mind space to actually do more of the things that matter to us for our general health and well-being. And those are things that relate to prioritizing sleep, setting a bedtime, and then trying to get between 7 and 9 hours of sleep after that. Or minding what we eat, understanding that intricate relationship of energy balance in terms of what we consume and how much energy we actually use in a day, and how we can properly fuel our days and the activities we have with foods that don't only provide us with the fuel and energy in the moment, but that actually also are going to keep us healthy and fit over the course of a lifetime. And the interesting thing is that, healthy foods can be very tasty, very flavorful, even simple recipes, if we invest a little bit of time and effort in the skills that are required to actually prepare set foods and to help us feed ourselves and fuel our performance. So there are many different ways in which we can tackle that problem. The same goes for movement, which I break down into generally just being active throughout the day and actual training. And training for me doesn't need to be more than 30 minutes in a day, except before this about the way I feel, not about the way I look. So if we want to, stay fit and active and healthy, the most important thing that we can do is develop a lifestyle where activity is actually central to the day-to-day, and add some training on top of that to work on the specific deteriorations that we start to experience as we grow older. So deterioration of our cardiovascular system, of our bone mineral density, of our muscular size and strength. And if we can do that, then the combination in terms of movement is going to be the golden ticket to long-term health. And then there are the relationships we have with our family, friends, the communities that we're a part of, and the pursuits that we have for the sake of doing them. Another pursuit, pastime, could be reading a book, not reading blogs, not reading anything on a screen, reading an actual physical book, for example, and detaching, getting immersed in another world, and the way a world is presented to us through fictional characters can be very good for our brains and for our mind health. In any case, friends, that's all I have for you today. Thanks for dropping by. I'm going to clean up, and then you'll find me in my kitchen on the Your Friend Toby's podcast stream. If you like this workout, very simple, very easy mobility, go ahead, leave a thumbs up, maybe check out my channel, subscribe, maybe join me for the podcast in a bit. Remember that we're good just the way we are. We've got to love ourselves before we can move on. It's the person we are today is going to get us to where we want to be tomorrow. So a bit of kindness is going to go a long way. There are enough people out there who want to put us down, so we can lift ourselves up, all right? And the only way to get anything done is by showing up and doing the work. So I will see you tomorrow. And X-Varikais, thanks for dropping by and saying hi, and I hope you're well and having a good day. And I appreciate everyone dropping by in the chat. And thanks for talking about having a good grasp of sleep. I'm actually going to talk a bit about sleep in the next stream, the podcast. All right? Take care, friends. And remember, subscribe.